Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak, this podcast. I am your honorable host, Jesse Gender, and I am joined as always by...
It's Vera. I'm going to include a question mark at the end of honorable because I feel like that was kind of key to that entire delivery.
Well, I'll give you a reason why I said it that way. So right before we were recording, I told you, Vera, I was going to tell you a piece of news that I learned today that is big, and the word honorable relates to that.
Okay.
But, like, honorable also means judge, so, like, which is not, if anything, I guess it kind of has something to do with it, but I was judged in a way, but still has nothing to do with being a judge. So, it was just interesting.
Okay. You gonna explain yourself, bitch, or...
No.
Oh, okay.
So I learned today that Identities was given, basically is an honoree for the Webby Awards.
Yay!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So it's not an actual nomination. It's just like an honorable mention, but it's still very cool. So.
Considering the scope of those things, that's no small feat.
Yeah, and it means I get to go to the ceremony, so I get a free dinner out of it.
Always a bonus.
But no, it will actually be very cool. I'm excited. I got to go to a Webby Awards 2 years ago, last year, one of the past couple of years, because Nebula just invited me. Dave, the CEO of Nebula, just said, "Hey, do you want to come?" I'm like, "Sure." So I wasn't nominated or anything, so I was like, "Oh, it's nice to actually go to say like I made a thing that's here, you know." So even though I won't win any awards, but it's nice.
Congratulations.
So, So yeah, if you go on the Nebula page, they messaged me this morning and it's already on their banner with like, "Oh, look, Webby honoree" or whatever.
Nice.
So, yay. It's got the little laurel things on it now.
Aw, proud of you.
Yeah, well, you're in it too. So
I know. Proud of me too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am very proud of that. So yeah, it's a nice feeling. It's gonna be a big year, I think, given all the stuff that I'm working on and that stuff. So yeah.
So speaking of Identities, I've now finally started one of your notable influences.
Oh.
I have seen the first season of Severance.
Ah, yes. What do you think?
It is good. I am going to make a criticism that I'm going to have to explain. It is good, and I like it.
Yeah.
But I think there were some times where it's a little bit too much about what it's about.
Ah, yeah. Where it gets way too specific about it, like...
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I think it was around episode 6 where I felt it the hardest, where they introduced... where they introduced, like, this person at the college. I forget the character's name, and, like, who gets pulled into this. And at that point, I'm like, okay, we're doing a lot of the plot. We're doing a lot of the, here's how this connects to this and that. And I am way more interested in just the people. And I am not, like, the plot isn't bad, but I am not nearly as enamored with the plot and the specifics of what is happening as I am with the impact of it on the people. And the show mostly stays on track, but every now and then I'm like, you're being too much about your plot, and I want you to stop.
Yeah. I agree. I can totally get that. I also, as someone who likes plot stuff, I don't mind that as much. My issue is actually coming in the second season, which I won't say too much because listeners may not have watched it as well because it just finished the second season.
And also I haven't.
Yeah, and you haven't. What I will say is this. I still also really like the second season. I still think it's one of the best shows on TV. I think they have made some choices that I'm like, I wish you didn't take this direction plot-wise. It's not bad. It's just not the kind of thing I would like. And knowing you, Vera, I know for sure it is something you will not like. How much it'll throw you off, how much it'll throw you out of it, I don't know. But it is something that I don't like, and I know for sure you don't like. And it's one of those, like, this isn't bad, but it's not the direction that I would have taken this, and it kind of makes it a slightly different thing. So, yeah, well, I'll get your thoughts on it when we get there. But, yeah, I again, very clearly like the second season. It just takes some direction. I'm like, this isn't great. And and also sets up some things where I'm like, this could become, let me put it this way, it could make season 3 either be the most anti-capitalist or the like very not anti-capitalist. And I'm curious to see how that will go. So
we'll see. Like, I think for some reason the show that I keep comparing it to in my head is Carol and the End of the World, which
I finally watched, by the way.
What'd you think?
I really loved that. I thought it was wonderful.
I adore that show. And one of the things I really like about that show is it is about the end of the world. It is about the impending destruction of the entire planet. And it is also almost never about the impending destruction of the entire planet. It's just about how people are being in that setting.
And I also really like that it's very weirdly life-affirming. Like, you would think of show about the end of the world would not be, but it's a very, very life-affirming, sweet show that happens to be about the end of the world.
I think I described it when I reviewed it as a celebration of the ordinary.
Yep. It is. It very much is, and I really liked that a lot about it. I also liked that it was a rogue planet. This isn't spoilers, everybody. This is the first episode. It was a rogue planet.
Yeah, it's literally the premise of the show.
Yeah. The premise of the show is that a rogue planet is coming to smash with Earth, and it will destroy Earth and everyone on it, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's just not something I see, because usually when it does this type of story, it's like it's like a giant asteroid that's going to kill us all. You rarely see rogue planet, and so I thought that was cool.
Yeah. But it's part of me wonders, would I like Severance better if I wasn't comparing it to that show? Maybe. Maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I really like Severance, but yeah, the season 2 takes some directions where I'm like, okay, not the way I would have done this. And I see how you get there, but it's a type of storytelling that I'm like, I'm less interested in that. Also, what the other thing I will say, especially if you don't like plot stuff, season 2 definitely becomes much more about the mystery box stuff.
I figured it probably would. I had a suspicion.
Which, to be fair, I don't hate what they do with the mystery box stuff, to be frank. So that's less my issue, but it does become more about that. So
I kind of assumed it would. But like, also random connection between Severance and Carol at the End of the World. The guy who plays Rickon is the voice of Eric, who is the guy that Carol hooks up with early on and then shows up again later and has the whole thing going on with his son.
Similar characters. In a weird way.
He's really good at these, like, okay, you're not a bad guy, but you are insufferable. He's really good for these parts.
Also, they released his book, by the way.
Oh my God!
The book that he's writing, they actually have an Audible, like, you can get the Audible version of it or whatever.
Which I'm assuming he reads.
Yeah, and it's for free too, so it's a free book. So
that's fucking amazing. I love that. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. It reminds me kind of those days. I didn't read it. I listened to parts of it because it was funny. It's a very funny book, but also it has apparently a lot of brings me back to the days of Lost, where they had like all the secrets or whatever, that sort of fun ARG stuff.
Yeah,
I know you won't care about it. When I was a kid, that was my jam. I bought there was a book. There's this. It's a shitty blah detective novel called Bad Twin. But it was like, ooh, it's tied into Lost. It's written by one of the members of the plane who crashed, and there might be clues to the series. Fuck all to do.
You were one of those people who went through the original Cloverfield trailer frame by frame, weren't you?
Oh, God, yeah.
God,
I got really... Oh, that ARG shit, I was into that. Like, I'm too tired for it now. I'm too busy. I can't get into it. But, like, I loved that shit. My favorite part of it was there was, like, a fake... scientific... foundation that they made for Lost, and there was like a website and everything. There was like a phone number that you could call, so I called them and then gave it to my mom, and she was like, you called some foundation. Like, she was very upset that I had like bothered this foundation or whatever. It was like the fake foundation you could call, and then I started yelling at them on the phone, and she was very deeply upset for like 5 minutes.
My favorite phone number, real world phone number gag tied to a show was for and it was, God, the show was only on for one season, when Constantine was on the air.
Oh, God, yeah.
And when Constantine would give out his card, there was a phone number on it. And if you called that, you got his answering machine, which is just him exhausted, like, okay, just let me know if we're talking about possession or a demonic portal, or just give me a sense of what's going on. Oh, and if you're looking for Alec Holland, go look in a swamp, which is a Swamp Thing reference.
Yeah.
Because that's where the character
really
originates from.
Yeah. I love that. That's really cool. I love that. I also didn't hate that Constantine show. I mean, obviously the actor went on to go and join the CW stuff, which was great, and I loved him there. But I actually didn't hate that show.
He was real good for the part. The show was fine. Like, I didn't.
It's one of those shows where I'm like, I think it was one of those shows that I could have seen gotten better over time.
It probably could have. That first season, it was very stuck in its formula, and it was a very procedural formula, which at the time it came out, procedurals were being done to death. It was the same reason I couldn't stick with Elementary, even though I really liked God, I can't think of his name, the star of Hackers as Sherlock Holmes.
Why am I blanking on his name? But yeah, I know who you're talking
Johnny
about.
Lee Miller.
Yeah.
There we go.
Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah, like I loved him in that, but I'm like, it's the same procedural format. I can't anymore. So like I bounced off both of those for the same reason.
I usually have room in my life for like a procedural. Like I can do one that's like, oh, this is nice comfort food. But yeah, there was way too many. Like even the CW shows, like I loved the Arrowverse for a time, but then they got to be like, all right, we're gonna have some weird heightened romance drama. They're gonna go in the corridor and talk about it for 2 minutes, and then it'll be fine by the end of the episode.
Only one I stuck with was Legends of Tomorrow, which was fucking perfect.
Yeah, Legends of Tomorrow after its first season was the best one of all of them by far.
And even its first season isn't that bad. Every other season is better, but that first one isn't even that
Yeah, it's not bad. No, that show is easily the best by far. That being said, I will stand by the first season of The Flash and the second season of Arrow are actually phenomenal. Like, I love that first season of Flash. It's so good with the first Flash as the villain. And then the second season of Arrow, where they have Deathstroke as the villain, was also really, really great. So I will stand by those two seasons. Those shows never got to those highs again. But they I enjoyed them for what they were for a time. But that being said, maybe it's a litmus test for what you kind of like in superheroes. And speaking of litmus tests, we're talking about the episode Litmus of Battlestar Galactica today.
I think this might be a record for the longest it's taken us to start talking about.
Yeah, that was a long one. I was wondering if we were gonna go, but yeah, sorry everybody. We will actually talk about Battlestar Galactica today. But before we get to the actual episode, I just have a couple of comments that I want to read, and I did prep them this time. First one up is from Scraper8, who said, "Wow, my comment got read. I was not expecting that." Well, how about that, Scraper? You get a second one read. I hope you feel happy. The second one is from GHLMK5931. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it. But about the scene with the bunker. So talking about the scene where Hilo and Toomer find the bunker. Yep. I agree that it was kind of odd it being in the middle of the city, but then I remembered that the Cylon War wasn't that long ago. I think the miniseries established the time frame was 50 years before. But anyways, Adama remembers it, so it was relatively recent. So the bunker could either be a remnant of that time or was built by someone of Adama's generation. So I remember your big problem was like, oh, people wouldn't be building those after the Cold War in America. And I'm like, we didn't bring up that technically the Cylon War would have been relatively within recent memory. So
Yeah. And like, I think ultimately, the more I think about it, like the thing is, the thing showed up and my gut instinct was that feels off. And then I was trying to figure out why. Because sometimes you have your gut instinct and then you try and figure out why the heck you feel that. I think ultimately more than anything is the fact that it's in a restaurant in the middle of downtown. I think it's probably the element
that's what weirded me out. I was like, why is it in a restaurant was the weird thing.
Yeah. I think that more than anything is now that I've sat with the thought for a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Two quick other ones here. Rom Loner said, Hot Dog is played by Edward James Olmos' son, Bodie, and he's called the show the best fracking job I've ever had, in large part because it let them work together. So I did know that back in a time, but I had forgotten it by now. So, but yeah, that is nepotism. Woo!
I
love it. And then James O'Neill 8920, this last one said, a bit of behind-the-scenes context for the hangar scene. One of the network's notes on the early... So this is this hangar scene where the people get blown up at the start of it because it's all happy, and then they immediately gets very sad. Yeah. One of the network's notes on the early scripts was asking for some happier scenes to lighten the mood, like someone celebrating a birthday. I think the cruelty of it specifically comes from resentment toward that note. Which I think is very, very funny. I mean, I will say, my thing stands still. I feel of like I would have liked I do like a couple of moments of joy in this depression fest of a show, and I love the show. I'm just saying, little bits of moments of joy I think give gradation to the depression. Yeah, I can see them reacting against that.
I agree, and I think it says a lot about Ronald D. Moore's headspace, where it's like, okay, cool, we'll have a celebration, and then we'll blow them up. You want to give me more notes to be happy, fuckers?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, as someone who came from Star Trek Voyager and the Rick Berman of it all, and the Brandon Braga, because he and Brandon they were writing partners, and they had a falling out while working on Star Trek Voyager, specifically because they had been writing partners, and then Brandon Braga was now his boss, his showrunner. Yeah, it didn't end well between the two of them for a time. But yeah, I think I could see him being very sensitive to shit notes from executives. Again, looking mainly at Rick Berman on that one. I have issues with Brandon Braga, but they are much less than Rick Berman, and I still have some shred of respect for Brandon Braga. So, anyways,
I think the nicest thing you can say about Rick Berman is Star Trek continued to exist under his watch. Yes, I think that is the most positive thing you can say.
Yes, that is pretty much the only positive thing you can say about the man. The other thing I will say is like him being like the issues with Rick Berman, they are bad, and I don't like Rick Berman, but none of them are shocking for executive brain mindset is the problem. He's not like uniquely bad, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's yeah. When you start getting into the ins and outs of executive mentalities, you realize, oh, all of you fuckers think like this. That's why everything's terrible.
Yeah, he just had a lot longer to have a bigger influence on Star Trek. Like, his influence is less in the beginning of Next Generation, but by Voyager Enterprise time, he had been there for 20 years, and it was like, yeah, he's the top dog and always going to get his way, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of top dogs, nope, that's a bad transition. We're going to go into Litmus's recap. We start off the episode with civilians boarding the Galactica, and we follow what we will learn in just a moment, though we won't see his face until the end of the scene, in Aaron Doral Cylon.
Whether I clocked him immediately just from the hair.
Yeah, it was very obviously him. But yeah, we don't know for sure if it's the same Aaron Doral or not in terms of like consciousness. They don't say that yet, so we still don't know what happens to his consciousness, if that anything did, or if he survived or anything like that. So.
Yeah, we still have no information on that.
But it is an Aaron Doral. He's clearly wearing a visitor badge. He clearly walks through the hangar deck, which is going to be a big plot point later on. Because he uses a specific door. And while all of this is going on, we cut to the chief going to meet in a, romantically meet with Boomer. And that is being facilitated by Callie, who is sort of watching out for him and being like, yeah, don't worry, we'll give you the time. I got you. Like, she's just part of the people to, like, get him some time with Boomer on the DL. So.
Yeah. So now they have a little love nest, and now they are, and this will also be a plot point, now they are implicating other people in their affair, which was always against regulation, but they have now been explicitly ordered to stop. I'm sure there will be no negative consequences whatsoever to this.
Continuing to do something that they've been explicitly ordered to stop and implicating other people in it. And Boomer does say that she took this, I forget that, like, the access corridor, like the access door in corridor C or whatever, but like a specific door that she took to get into their romantic meeting, so that she wouldn't be seen. But then, back in other parts of Galactica, Aaron Doral walks by Colonel Ty, who recognizes him, calls for backup, but then Adama also catches him. Aaron Doral turns around, reveals that he has a bomb strapped to his chest, and dies by suicide, and almost kills Adama, but does not succeed.
Yep. And like
Ty pulls him out of the way, I should say.
Yeah. obviously, like the logistical nature of the fact that there are other bodies for Aaron Durrell, and in theory, whatever version of his consciousness was in this will still continue on. So it's not really a proper suicide. But again, very post 9/11, let's have a suicide bomber.
Yeah. Well, even like the description of the episode says a suicide bomber blows it. Like the episode description. Even though technically it's not suicide, if you wanted to argue it.
Yeah, you could argue it's not because.
But they're very clearly using that imagery and language. So.
All he's doing is ending the specific body his consciousness is currently in. But yeah, it is very much intended to evoke a very specific thing.
Yep, very, very, very much so. So yeah, definitely not post 9/11 vibes in there. But we cut back from the opening credits to a very, very horribly burned guy screaming in Doc Cuddle's sickbay.
It was kind of harrowing. They do not pull back on dealing with.
Yeah, no, this guy is fully burned. Yeah,
we find out 3 dead and 13 injured.
So yeah, they're showing like people got killed, and yeah, it's very rough. So,
and I feel really bad for Starbuck because at one point there's a pan over and she's like in this bed with her leg in the cast and surrounded by screaming burnt people. I'm like, God damn, okay.
Yes, gotta not be great. Very calming, great place to heal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very zen. We then cut to Ty and Adama meeting with the Master at Arms, who was a woman named Hadrian. And they basically start asking her, they tell her about how they want her to investigate how someone could have broken their security. She mentions that there's been a string of security incidents, such as the stuff that the C4 that Boomer took episodes ago in the episode Water, though she doesn't know Boomer did it. And she says to investigate, she needs a free hand, so an independent tribunal. She asked for, which Adama then gives to her.
Yep.
So, and then and then they also alert her to the fact that Cylons look like humans.
Well, that's why she asked for the free hand to be able to do the tribunal, because they finally tell the Master at Arms, hey, anybody could be a Cylon. You'd think. Like, I understand they were trying to keep it under wraps, but you would think the person in charge of keeping track of weapons and munitions on the ship would be someone to loop into that.
Yeah.
For no other reason than she needs to be on the lookout for people who might technically have authorization, but if they're acting suspicious, she might have reason to stop them. But you've given her no reason to look for that shit because she doesn't know.
They do kind of try to bring it up later on in the episode, but like in an offhanded way.
Oh,
but
this is the first of many, and I don't know how much of it is a writing problem and how much of it is a directing problem. But the way this character is handled, I'm gonna have a lot of bitching.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Let's see. After she leaves, she does recommend to Adama, you should tell the public about the Cylon threat. To which, Adama doesn't give anything away to her. But when she leaves, Ty sort of says, oh, that'll be a can of worms. And Adama's kind of considering it. And he says, well, maybe it'll make things pop up because our way is certainly not helping. And then as Adama, as Ty leaves, Adama says, I owe you one. And they sort of salute each other.
Yeah. So. Like, and I do appreciate the complexity of the situation that Adama's in here because, yeah, there is and was a solid argument for keeping it under wraps to avoid panic, to avoid paranoia, to, avoid witch hunt scenarios and all that. But as Adama himself points out, like, it hasn't actually appeared to help us so far to keep this on the down low. So,
yep. Might as well, yeah.
Yeah,
we then cut.
That's kind of the point he's at.
Yep. We then cut to the deck gang, so these sort of underlings under Chief Tyrrell, who were sort of kind of implicated or at least aware in helping him meet with Boomer. But their names are Callie, who we've met before, Cecynus, who we've probably seen in the background, and then also Jammer. So Jammer is there. All characters, I believe, who will come back. So just getting their names out there now.
Okay.
But yeah, they have a still that they're using.
Moonshine, baby!
Yep,
I called
making
it.
some moonshine.
I freaking called it.
Yep. And then the chief comes in, and he sort of like seems to jokingly be putting his foot down. He's like, "Oh, you're the sorriest of the sorries. This one-way trip to sickbay of the morgue." But then he sort of says, "All right, I'll show you how it's done, children."
Yeah, he's like, "You got to get me twice that length of copper piping, and get me this, this, and this, and I'll show you how to actually do this."
Yeah, exactly. So he's clearly a buddy with them to a degree.
Well, in this moment, he's being the cool RA who doesn't really care that they smell weed under your door.
Exactly. We then cut to silent occupied Caprica, and we have Hilo hanging out with a rat.
My initial note is, so help me if he shoots another fucking rat. He doesn't, thankfully. But that was my note. So help me.
I knew you would think about that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm still pissed that he did that.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. But then we cut to Adoral, A6, and Tumor. So definitely Tumor. All standing above on the rooftop nearby, watching him.
Very Batman of them.
Yeah, and I have to say, this is one of several times they do this throughout this episode. I'm like, if Hilo looks up at any fucking point, he's gonna be like,
yeah, because this is not nighttime. They are very clear against the sky.
Yeah, and like relatively close too. He just has to look up. Yeah. It's like, oh shit, he saw us. Fuck. But yeah, they're talking about the fact that he looks attractive, but then they basically play out this thing where if he heads north he's not going to go anywhere now until nightfall, but if he goes north at night, that means he probably will try to want to find Tumor, because that's where he knows the Cylons are, and he wants to go and try and find her. And if he heads south, he's probably going to try and go it alone, leave her behind, and try and find his own way off planet. And if he tries to go south and leave, he's going to get killed. They're going to kill him.
Yeah. I am still very curious as to why they're keeping him alive at all. Because, if it wasn't for the fact that they have a boomer already on Galactica, my normal assumption would be that they are trying to get Tumor as ingratiated to him as possible so he could take her back to Galactica. But they already have a boomer on Galactica. So I don't... And I'm not, at present, this is not yet a criticism or like there's something's going wrong, but I'm still racking my brain trying to figure out, why are they bothering with this guy? Because I don't know.
Yeah, fair. Who knows? Curious. Very, very curious. But yes. We then cut to Roslyn and Adama talking by phone, and it's very clearly they're talking about Adama suggesting that they possibly go public, and Roslyn is very hesitant about this. She says there's going to be a huge reaction, and there's a price to be paid for the public's help. Someone will need to be held accountable. The tribunal you created will have to come back to the public with a name. And she also was very clear, it's like, someone blew themselves up on your ship. At least one of your men or women screwed up. Like, he's like, because Adama tries to say, like, we don't know for sure if someone did. She's like, yeah, someone definitely did. And she says, transparency sounds great, but it might inflict damage on the people you least expect.
Yeah. I mean, she kind of makes this point. I kind of wish she'd hit it harder. Because, like, I'm not going to say she'd, like, saying that, like, a Cylon got on and blew stuff. One of your men or women screwed up. I don't have a problem with the point being made. That's not the point I would have hit as hard as they do. The point I would have hit as hard as they do is, like, you assemble a tribunal, somebody has to be found out and pointed to, because otherwise it looks either like a cover-up or completely ineffectual. If they come back with nothing. Now she kind of,
if you're just passing the buck and not willing to take hands, like, oh, we investigated and no one's at fault.
Yeah. So, like, she implies...
We invited the Cylon to the group chat, and no one's at fault.
Oh, my fucking God. How are we in this time? Like, okay, moving on.
Anyway, sorry, you shouldn't have brought it there.
Oh, Jesus. But, like, she kind of implies this. I would have liked to see her hit this specific point harder, because I think it's the more interesting point, especially as far as optics and politics go. That, like... if you're going to assemble an investigation and you're also going to reveal to the public something this big, like if you don't point to somebody and go, it's their fault, then you have done nothing to reassure the public, and all you've done is induce the panic.
Mm-hmm. So at least you can, if you have the tribunal, someone comes back, at least they can be like, all right, well, at least someone seems like they're the problem.
We know why that happened. That person did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. She's very public savvy. I'll give her that.
No, she's quite politically savvy for somebody in an appointment position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like now she's president, but I mean in terms of how she was in politics.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she was also a teacher, so she probably had to deal with some level of it to a degree. But, you know.
We don't know what she taught, do we?
Yeah, I don't think she's mentioned yet. I think she'll mention it offhandedly in another episode, but I don't remember off the top of my head what it is.
I might try and keep an ear out for that.
Yeah. Anyways, we then cut to the Master at Arms interviewing a bunch of the deck crew, such as Callie, Jammer, Sisinus, and she's finding a bunch of inconsistencies in their stories. Sisinus says he was on watch, he didn't see the chief. He did. He was actually came in to work on his Viper. And then Jammer says, I was with Callie, and then I saw Chief playing Pyramid, and he dropped in. Callie says that he was on his rack sleeping, and the Chief.
No, Callie says he was doing paperwork.
Oh, yes. But the Chief says he was in his rack.
Yes.
So basically they all give different stories about where he was, which the Master at Arms clocks, obviously.
So, first of all, right off the bat, you people are the worst conspirators ever because you all got in on this. You all agreed to cover for him, and you didn't even bother to come up with the same cover story? Like,
my
the fuck off.
My read on this, to make it work, we only know that Callie was the only one, officially, part of the plan. And none of the other ones were just kind of aware and covering if need be, but they didn't expect to cover it. And also we've established they're kind of kids who don't know fuck all what they're doing. So it's it feels like it was a much more impromptu thing that Callie was the only one in on it, whereas the other ones were just kind of vaguely aware as friends. And they're also not exactly very smart in terms of how they handle it.
Well, yes, that is true. I would still argue that the Chief absolutely at bare minimum, even if you're going to tell me Callie was the only one really in on it, the Chief didn't even come up with a story to be consistent with her.
Yeah.
So, even at the basic level, taking the ones who appear the dumbest out of the equation and having it be just Callie, who we know for certain did help him, you still didn't come up with a cover story for the one person who's definitely got to get in trouble.
Yep. Yeah.
There's a lot of episode length idiocy. That the idiot ball is being passed around a lot in this episode, if I'm being honest.
I could buy it from the 3 deck gang because they're young and dumb, but Tyrell, I feel like he should have known better by that point.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't disagree.
So he's the one with the idiot ball right now. It's gonna get passed around, but he's the one holding it at the moment.
Well, we then cut to a press conference that the president is giving, and she basically tells everyone about the explosion, tells them about the independent tribunal, and tells everyone that the Cylons look like us now, and shows them a picture of Aaron Doral and the body of Leoben that they had.
Yep.
So the people know of at least 2 Cylon models now. The engineering crew, the deck gang said, they're sort of chatting about it. It's Callie says, I don't even want to know this. I don't want to deal with this. But then the Master at Arms comes in and comes to take Boomer and the Chief. There's a little bit of a showdown where Crashdown, who is ranked higher than the Master at Arms, comes in and sort of demands what's going on. But when he hears what's going on, he sort of reluctantly allows her to take them.
Yeah. So this is going to be the start of my big issue with the Master at Arms and how she's depicted in this. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know how much of this is a writing problem, and I don't know how much of it is a directing problem. Because either it was written this way specifically, or the director coached the actress to perform it this way. I'm not going to blame the actress. I think she did what was asked of her, which is that they depict the Master at Arms as, I mean, you could argue whether it's specifically like drunk on power, losing the plot. Like, she is painted very much as a villain in this. Mm-hmm. And I hate that because it creates a moral simplicity that feels antithetical to what the show is and should be and often does do. Because like what the situation should be is her going about her job fairly dispassionately because this is where the evidence leads and she needs to keep looking. But they, right from this point, and it's going to get worse as it goes, they depict her as so emotionally invested and clearly like personally angered at, you know, the people that she's questioning and all this stuff that the tone of it is that this is a rogue person with power they shouldn't have, as opposed to this is someone doing a job that very specifically needs to be done right now.
Well, interesting, because I don't disagree. This definitely was the writing intention. So there's a quote that I am going to, I don't know if I wrote down the quote. Well, I'll tell you what the intention was at the end, but there's a quote from Ronald D. Moore that I found that gets at what they were intending to do with this episode, that I actually want to bring up a comparison to a Star Trek The Next Generation episode called The Drumhead, which is a very similar episode to this one. However, it has, this style of that episode is very similar to this one. A lot of people make the comparison to it. However, I think the intentions of both episodes are very, very different. And I make the comparison directly because Ronald D. Moore worked on both Next Generation and this. Okay. So, I think the intention is to make her look like she's lost the plot and is very personally angered and is very politically, like a very personally motivated tribunal. Because I think ultimately they were trying to get to a point that the episode wants to hint at, but I don't think hits as clear and as hard as I think it could have. And I'm trying to figure out if I like that or not. And I'll talk it out when I get there. But what I will say is this. I do think it was very intentional that they play her as personally motivated in a losing the plot kind of way.
Which I think is a mistake for two reasons. Mm-hmm. And I don't like it. I'm locking that in now.
Sure.
I think that's a mistake for two reasons. The first is, this is the first time we're spending significant time with this character. It's not the first time we've seen her, but when we've seen her elsewhere, she has been what I expected her to be this episode and isn't, which is fairly dispassionate, just doing the job to the best of her ability. Like when she's looking into the explosion in the hangar or whatever, like she's just very job focused and she seems to just be very professional about it. Whereas here she gets very emotional, seems to be taking it very personally, and as we've said, like just losing the plot of what she is supposed to be doing. I don't think that works with a character who for all practical purposes might as well have just barely been introduced. Mm-hmm. I think if that was going to work, it needed to be someone who I understand why she's taking it personally.
Yeah,
because since I don't, it just means that she's an asshole. She is designated asshole for this story.
Yes, and I agree with that completely. Like, I do think her character needed to have more reason to be going down this route, so I don't think they motivate her enough for that. That I agree with 100%. What I will argue is kind of what we get to at the end here is that there is a point that the episode's trying to make at the end that I don't think that I think works better if you have the character be personally motivated in a way that just makes her look like an ass. But I don't think the episode hits that point strong enough for it to work as well.
I think I might know where you're going with this. So what I'm going to say is that it would have been, for where it's eventually going to go, if the point at which, like, where it truly comes to a head later on, if that was the point where she seemed to crack and it became personal, that might have worked. But it seems personal for her from the get-go.
From the get-go.
Which,
that I can get.
Which negates, like, the sense of this building and her losing the plot over time. It just seems like, oh, I'm independent? cool, I'm going mad with power, fucking immediately, is the impression that is left because of the choices for acting, directing, and writing. And then the other thing is that ultimately, I just don't think the conflict is anywhere near as interesting with her being this way. I think whatever interest I would have had in the conflict, which isn't a lot, I don't really like this episode. I'll say that right now. There's other problems that I have with this, mostly for purposes of kind of generic and cliched writing choices. But like, it's all exacerbated by the fact that she is painted as such the villain off the bat, and it just removes whatever use I would have had for what the rest of the narrative's doing.
Fair. I definitely agree with. We'll talk more about the specifics of where I think this was trying to go with this characterization, but I agree with you that it would have been better as a build if that's what they were trying to get to at the end. But we'll get there when we get there.
And also, for this, I know I can come across as super negative, and I don't want people to think I'm coming in hating in the show. I still like the overall plot points as the thing is going on. I have just, by the standards this show itself is already set, I expect better. That's that's more the issue.
I agree. And I also think like this is a show that is one of those, like, season 1 is rougher than the rest of the seasons.
Okay.
I will argue. Some people argue season 4 is also rough too. I think the show improves on some of its cliched stuff. Like, I don't think any of this is like terrible, like in the way that some Babylon 5 early season 1 stuff that we reviewed was terrible.
Like this
but
isn't,
like, I do think this is a show that improves as it goes.
Yeah, no, this isn't TKO. This isn't Infection. This this is absolutely not at that level. But I already know the show is better than this.
Yes, agreed.
Is the problem.
Well, we then cut to the Master at Arms interviewing Boomer in the tribunal. So this is the first scene where like they're actually in front of the tribunal. She's being interviewed by them. And sort of she's acting kind of as the prosecutor, I guess, but there's no defense attorney, so it's just basically just acting as
it's just an
whatever.
It's an inquisition. She's the inquisitor.
Yes. But yes, Boomer, basically asking about Boomer where she was when, at the time that she was definitely with the chief. But Boomer obviously is lying and saying that, you know, she was in Iraq. She is asked point blank about whether or not she had a romantic relationship and physical relationship with the chief, and she denies it. She said the XO told us to stop, so we did. And she is also asked where Tiro was at the time of the bombing. She says, I have no idea, but I'm sure he had nothing to do with the bombing. So.
Yeah. So I actually wrote this down based off a later scene, but I'm just going to bring it up now. Like, oh, great. So we're doing the whole lying for stupid reasons thing. Now, this is one of those things that I'm not going to say it never works, but it's very hard to make work when you have characters in a situation where they are lying to cover up something that is nowhere near as bad as the thing they're being accused of. So in order to lie to cover up something that is not good, but is nowhere near as heinous as the thing they're being accused of, they're going to act super suspicious, which will make people more likely to think that you did the worst thing that you're actually accused of, which is just, it's something that frustrates me. And again, I know people actually do this. I know it's a human nature thing. I know people aren't automatons who automatically parse, well, this would be worse, and I should be honest. But at the same time, it is done so often and handled in this exact way that I'm just like, okay, so this is what we're doing now.
And it's even weirder considering she is a Cylon agent, and it's so to make herself look more guilty of possibly being a Cylon agent feels silly for her position too.
Well, that's where we get into the issue of how conscious and how aware is she.
Yes. But still, it is one of those, like, it goes against every level. Like, both versions of her consciousness. Whether she is a Cylon agent or she is not aware she's a Cylon agent.
She's screwing herself either way.
Yeah, it's dumb for her either way. One is more dumb, but both are dumb considering either direction. So
yeah,
either you're gonna set yourself up to be accused of a Cylon agent, which you don't believe yourself to be, or you're gonna set yourself up to be accused of being a Cylon agent when you are a Cylon agent, and that's the last thing you want to be accused of credibly. So yeah, either way, it's bad.
Yep.
Anyways. We then cut to the chief being on trial and being questioned. He basically, she says you have the right to remain silent, so we have some level of comparison to our political system right now, or America's political system. But yes, she basically questions him about, like, did you walk the perimeter of the hangar? You were the person, you're supposed to be on the watch. You're supposed to have checked all the hangar deck and make sure all the hatches were shielded and closed. However, I found that the hatchway on Causeway C, the one that Boomer very clearly mentioned that she used in the scene where they were together back at the top of the episode, I found that it was, you said it was closed, but it was actually left open. And that leads directly to the small arms locker where a Marine was found dead. Did you give him the code? Did you give the Cylon the code to get into the small arms locker? And the chief said, I did not leave that door open. That code could have come from anyone, including the Marine. Maybe the Marine was even tortured by the Cylon to get the code. But yes. So, Hadrian does ask if, Chief Valeri, Boomer left the hatch open if they were meeting, and then she also shows him with basically asks him about 3 different places he possibly could be, and he said no, and he basically denied catches him in denying all the 3 different versions of the story that were told about where he was by the deck gang. And then he chooses then to exercise the right to remain silent.
Yeah, it is this whole thing of like, oh, so you were asleep in your rack. Okay, that's definitely where you were, and you weren't doing this, you weren't doing that. That's funny. I've got all these other stories. Oh, you skipped a scene that I had notes on.
Oh, I was gonna come back to it because it kind of is in the middle of this scene. It kind of cuts it starts with the chief on trial, and then we cut to that scene that you're probably mentioning, and then we cut back to the chief. So I was gonna do this chief stuff and then come back to that.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
So, but yeah, so all of that stuff. Couple interesting things that one thing that I kind of noted here too was the I mentioned it earlier, but the fact that we have the right to remain silent, so there is some similarities to our legal system, which is not shocking given the show probably is making parallels to our legal system. But just an interesting note. And then also she says too that if you exercise the right to remain silent now, they'll take it as an indication that you might be guilty. Which will be later noted they're not supposed to do. Yes, which I found interesting as a note, but.
Yeah. Which again, kind of it'll be confirmed later on, but is an early indicator again that this woman has lost the plot fucking immediately.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the scene that you were mentioning is that we have the deck crew kind of arguing, and Jammer is very much of the opinion that hey, everyone it's every man for themselves now. The Cylons look like us. We can't trust each other. And Callie sort of brings out the same we can't turn on each other. We have to this is what the Cylons want. And so Cynus is kind of in the middle of the two of them being no, we should kind of support each other, but seems very hesitant and unsure.
Yeah, don't like this scene. It's a super on the nose, let's have 3 people take the 3 positions to be had upon finding out that Cylons can look like people. We have the let's stick together, we have the trust nobody, and we have the I don't know what to do. So let's embody them in these characters. But here's my bigger issue. Given that we know and have been hearing for a couple of episodes already that the rumor is they're talking about this as if this is the first time they've ever heard this. What about all the freaking rumors that we were hearing from Crashdown that were apparently just roaming around, and none of these 3 ever heard this before? It wasn't. I know they were keeping a cap, the Adama and the rest were trying to keep a cap on it, but word was spreading. That was a plot point. That word was spreading, and now all of a sudden, word has not spread at all, and they are shocked and thrown into disarray by the news that apparently they'd never heard before. Make up your fucking mind!
Yeah, it is a little inconsistency there. The only argument I can make is that they're idiot kids who don't pay attention to that shit. They're just
okay, this is the second time you brought that one up. That excuse does not go this far.
Oh, I agree. I agree. It's like if the only excuse I could possibly make, I don't even agree with it. I'm just playing devil's advocate because just to make the argument, just to protect us from the comments. Like it is like someone in the comments might say it, but I'm just like I don't buy it either. I'm just saying it's a devil's advocate sort of argument, I guess there. Anyways. We then cut to Sisinus being put on trial. The Master at Arms asked him about his inconsistency in his story, and she asked, did you see him or didn't you? He said, I did not see him. And then he says, I left my post. I ducked out to get a smoke, and then I went to the gallery to get food. Don't know where he was. And then she asked him, did you go through the door that everyone's talking about, the one on C deck? And he says, did you leave it open? Not sure, but yes, sir, I think I did. The chief had nothing to do with it. And then she questions, did you allow a Cylon to gain access to the small arms locker? Did you did the chief tell you to leave it open? Did you leave the hatch open deliberately? And he says, yes, sir, it was me, just me. So he takes all the credit for it.
See, this is the one part where the stupid kids thing actually tracks, because this is I
think, where it was intended to.
Yes, this is the foolish, misplaced, excessive loyalty from someone who isn't old enough to understand that this degree of blind loyalty doesn't even help the person that you are loyal to. He's too young to and inexperienced in life to get that. This is the one place where that works.
Mm-hmm. No, I did like the scene. It worked very, very well. And like you could tell the kid is just trying to like figure out what he should say and trying to get his like boss in trouble, the guy that he likes, and just makes himself very inconsistent on the stand and commits perjury, obviously.
Yep.
So, yep. We then cut to Cylon-occupied Caprica. Hilo initially chooses to go south, and they say the Cylons all watching him from up above on their Batman perch. Says, oh, you've overestimated his willingness to risk himself for you. But then Hilo stops for a minute, thinks about it, and goes north. And they go, oh, looks like you made an impression after all. And Toomer says he's a good man. He always does the right thing. So.
Yep, which is an interesting observation for a guy from a species they intend to wipe out.
Mm-hmm. It is an interesting observation. Is she catching the feelings? Has she got the feels?
Oh, fuck. Don't do that.
I'm not saying if that's the case or not. I'm just saying.
And I'm saying it better fucking not be. Jesus Christ. Come on.
I'm not saying either.
Give me a goddamn break. Oh, like the one bit of first season of Severance that pissed me off. Mm-hmm. There is a kiss. In the last episode of the season, I literally threw my hands in the air and went, for fuck's sake!
Oh, you're going to hate season 2.
Oh, it pissed me off so much. I'm like, why the fuck is that there? God damn it.
You're going to hate season 2.
This was so interesting. And now it's that. Ah.
You cold, shriveled heart of a woman, Vera.
Emotions are for the weak. The only reason to have sex is procreation. You are all sinful.
Whoa, Jesus Christ. That escalated real quick. Hot damn. Oh. Well, we have a quick little scene here where Baltar goes to visit Starbuck in the sick bay. He brings her a cigar for good luck. He's clearly trying to bang her.
Second person to bring her a cigar in as many days.
Yeah, I mean, she's getting all the cigars,
Yeah.
Guys just keep on giving her phallic objects. I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, Starbuck brings up the point that, hey, Aaron Doral was blew himself on C deck. Your super secret project is on C deck. Do you think he was coming to blow you up? And Baltar's like, oh, hadn't thought of that. And it takes that as his cue to leave.
Yep.
The scene continues after that, but I'm like, really? You didn't think about that at all?
Apparently, he was too busy trying to figure out, how can I find out if she's a natural blonde? And it is only now that I'm realizing that question probably had to do with, I wonder if I'll ever see her pubic hair to see if...
You're just now getting that?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought that that was the implication for the yeah. He wants to see if he can get to see her pubic hair and see if she's actually blonde in there. Yeah,
that bypassed me because it is.
Wow, I'm disappointed in you, Vera.
Don't be. Look. Here's the thing. Yes, I am a very sexually minded person, but that is such gross base level toxic masculinity locker room bullshit. My brain edits it out at this point. Like, fair. I like miss me with that shit. Again, incredibly sexual person, as you are well aware.
I am very aware. Shut up. But yes, that is definitely locker room bullshit.
Yeah, but that locker room bullshit, like, miss me with that every freaking day. My brain, I think, literally like puts an airbag around my mental processing, being like, nope, don't think about that. Don't think about that.
I mean, to be fair, it fits Baltar.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not even criticizing the writing. It's like that is how far I want to be from that kind of masculinity, that my brain didn't even connect that.
Well, yeah, that is definitely the intention. But speaking of, we continue with Baltar talking to Head Six as they go through the corridor. And he starts getting nervous, like, oh, they're trying to kill me. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's me. They're not trying to kill you. They're trying to kill you. We're killing you is just a bonus. And he basically comes up and says, well, I guess I can destroy the Cylon detector and blame it on a Cylon, and then I can get out of having to deal with this at all. And then Head Six shoves him up against the wall and starts choking him and says, you're going to complete that project just like I told you. And he says, really, will I, or what? And says, don't make me angry, guys. Won't like you when I'm angry. Haha, Hulk reference. But she kisses him, and the guards are sort of like, what the fuck was that? It was sort of weird.
Yeah, so you skipped over something that I think is an interesting thing for you to choose to skip over. Because he has this whole thing of like, why are the Cylons trying to kill me? I'm doing what you want. And Head Six says, well, like, they don't know I'm in your head. Which is interesting considering her cover story is, I am a Cylon chip that was implanted. So if that is true, which I really don't believe at this point, like I think evidence very strongly points to she is his own mental creation. But I guess part of the thing is, if she were, and I don't think she is, but if she were a chip in his head, then why wouldn't the Cylons know? Because that must mean, for starters, A, it's in no way broadcasting any information back to them, because otherwise they should know what he's up to and whether or not it is of use to them. And two, if it was a chip, it would also mean that she must be doing something that isn't whatever pre-programmed or assigned thing she was given. So either she is completely gone rogue at this point, or, as I am more inclined to believe, she's just a figment of his goddamn egotistical imagination.
I'm trying to think of how to ask questions without giving away things.
Am I backing you into a corner? That's fun.
No, let me put it this way. It's interesting, your thought process. What I will ask then, is then what do you make then of the fact, if your inclination is that he is or she is part of his head, what do you make of the fact that he clearly wants to get out of the Cylon detector thing, and she clearly has an agenda that is like, I want you to do it?
My inclination at this point is that she is a manifestation of a couple of things. She is a manifestation of subconscious, ultimately simplified. She is a manifestation of subconscious shit that he doesn't want to deal with. Whether that be subconscious thought processes that are just cooking in the background, which can be the part of her that's coming up with the idea of, oh, there's sleeper agent, oh, this other stuff. It's like running processes in the background. But she is also potentially a manifestation of instincts and desires and motivations that he does not like to think he has.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting reads, I guess I'll put.
But like, if you want another comparison, let's make it a Dexter thing. She's his dark passenger. Yeah, kind of behaving in a way that like it might as well be a separate being commanding him, but also still ultimately part of him.
Okay, that's an interesting read. Certainly some assumptions made. That's all I'll say. Spoiler minute's gonna be fun on this one. Anyway,
what should I distract you with this time? I did note somebody in the comments being like, "Dang it, Vera! I was really interested in what Jesse was talking about, but then she clearly lost her train of thought."
Yeah, I know. I was like, you jerk! Please don't distract me, because there are things like I feel that I'll say this. I was very annoyed because I was trying to talk about something kind of important. You wildly threw me off. I only get a minute to talk about these things, so
look, I'm not gonna do it on a regular basis. You will usually have your minute, but every now and then, I want to fuck with you.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. To be fair, a lot of the spoiler minutes are me going, tee-hee-hee, Vera said this thing. Isn't she silly or smart? Like, sometimes it's like, oh, she's spot on. Or sometimes it's, oh, she's way the fuck off. So, yeah, that's part of a lot of the fun of the spoiler minute. So, it's usually reacting to what you think is coming. And all of us just collectively laughing at you. Not with you. We're laughing at you. So, just have that going at all times.
Okay.
I got another click, everybody. Speaking of, actually, going back to the comments, I did get a comment from the Dominator T100 that said, and I saw that you hearted this comment, by the way. I realized while listening to this that I think Vera's got me trained with that clicker. I get such a surge of anticipation for it whenever Jesse gets bratty, and it's so satisfying when it finally happens. It was so gradual, I didn't even notice. And that comment got a heart from you.
Well, of course it did, because it just shows how well you've been trained and how well you took to it, and I am very, very proud of you.
We're having some sexual awakenings on this podcast, aren't we?
I will awaken as many people as I can. Look, I spent a while cracking eggs just by existing as a queer person. Now I'm working on a whole different section of eggs that I'm gonna crack this. We're making
come for the Battlestar Galactica discussion. Leave with an egg crack. Anyways, we then cut to just a quick little scene where to give plausible deniability to Boomer having been kidnapped, Toomer being kidnapped by the Cylons, Doral and Six beat the ever-loving shit out of her. Well, Doral just backslaps her, and Boomer says, was that enough? And then Six like, no, Sharon would have put up a much harder fight, and Six beats the shit out of her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no love lost between the Cylons.
I mean, the impression
it reads more as just as like it's just practical and cold. So
yeah, like as a practical matter, like this body is unimportant.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have to be careful with their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Either their own or each other's.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Sorry, I gotta leave a note here.
I
just want to make sure because there's a lot that I need to talk about. All right, that's how I just leaving notes for myself. Pay no attention to the woman making notes behind the curtain. Anyways, we then cut to Adama and Rosalind talking again, and Rosalind sort of says, I'm sorry to hear about the fact that your man got charged. The scientist was charged with collusion with a Cylon agent. She also asks about the chief, what was all that about? He took the 23rd, and Adama points out the courts have never said that the 23rd can be used as evidence of guilt. So clearly we get the allusion to what you were saying before, that the Master at Arms is clearly losing the plot because she is saying that it would be an evidence of guilt. When she was
and she even kind of, we didn't say this, she even kind of set up the chief in advance of that, because at the start of his testimony, she goes, will you agree to not invoke your 23rd article right to not speak?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, she does set him up for that. And Rosalind points out, it's like, oh, you know a lot about stuff, and Adama says, my father was a lawyer. To which I would just wanted to point out, just because it's funny, and this isn't a spoiler, just because it's part of the concept of the show. We do actually get to meet his father. He is a main character on Caprica, because Caprica he's one of the major characters of Caprica, played there by Isai Morales, who's
not sure.
He's he's actually a really great actor. I adore him. He is probably most recently known for he was the main villain of the most recent Mission Impossible movie,
which I haven't seen.
He was also, well, if you have watched, you probably don't, but he was just in an episode of the spin-off show of Mythic Quest called Side Quest, which was really good. If you haven't watched Side Quest, like Mythic Quest, I actually love. It's one of the best comedies on TV right now, I actually think. But Side Quest was a spin-off of it, and he was in an episode of that, and he was great in that episode as well.
I'm browsing through his IMDb and trying to see if there's anything that.
He's just one of those really good character actors that's been in a shit ton of things, and I've always enjoyed him in everything. I don't think he's ever had, I think Mission Impossible is like one of his biggest things that he's ever done. He's just one of those actors that's been in a bunch of different stuff. But I've always enjoyed him every time I've seen him, and he's always really, really great. So I do really like him a lot. But he plays Joseph Adama, Adama's dad, in Caprica.
Yeah, I don't think I have ever seen him in anything.
Oh wow, really? Yeah, he's great. I if you do ever get the chance to, I think he's a really good actor. Actually, he was he was in the Arrowverse shows. Who was he in the who was he in the Arrowverse? I'm trying to remember who he was. He played oh no, duh. That's why he's not in the Arrowverse shows. He played Deathstroke in Titans, the Titans show, which he was good in that. That show. Generally not great. He had a couple moments of being close to good, but it was generally not great. But he was Deathstroke in that. So.
Okay.
Whatever. He is always, even if the things he is not in are good, he is always good. He's just one of those character actors that's been in a billion things, and he's always great. But yeah, Caprica, I think, was one of his first. He's also in NYPD Blue, I guess, which I've never seen.
Yeah, no, I just checked Titans because I'm like, I saw the first season of that. He didn't show up till the second season.
No, he's not until like the second season, so
yeah. No,
No, he's a good, you'll finally get to see him when we get to Caprica. So all I will say is we get a mention of Dama's father here, who will be a character in Caprica, so I thought that was kind of funny.
I guess I saw him in one episode of Adam Ruins Everything.
Oh. Interesting. Yeah. I haven't seen that show either, so I couldn't judge it. But yeah, no, he's great. And just to shout out here, if you have not watched Mythic Quest, you should. It's phenomenal. I actually think it's one of the best comedies out there right now. And its spin-off show, Side Quest, which is just a bunch of anthology episodes that are tangentially related to Mythic Quest. He plays a conductor in that, and he's really good in it as well. It's my favorite episode of that Side Quest series. But yeah, I would highly recommend Mythic Quest. It's really, really good. The only negative I can say about it is partially funded by Ubisoft, and Ubisoft sucks. So I certainly have seen people say I'm not going to watch it because of Ubisoft. And that I completely understand. I will say the show is very, very critical of the video game industry generally. So it doesn't seem like they have much of a creative say in the show. I don't know for sure, but regardless, it's a great show. Because there's episodes about like how the video game industry treats unions like shit and everything. It's a very workers' rights kind of show. Anyways, great show. I would recommend it. Anywho, moving on. We then cut to Hilo is back on Caprica, and he sees some birds sort of fly out of a factory or whatever. So he sort of realizes there's someone in there. He heads in there and sees a centurion dragging a body, goes looking for it. The centurion sneaks up on him somehow, even despite it being huge and loud and metal. But he manages to shoot it and rescues Sharon, who has had her face beat the fuck up. He kisses her, and they escape with Doral and Six watching from their Batman perch in the background.
I wanted one of them, ideally Six, though I guess it could have been Doral, to just sort of growl out, I'm Batman.
They are definitely, especially in that shot, because it's just their shadows. It's a good shot. It's creepy, but it's definitely giving Batman vibes. So
Yeah. Oh God. Now I'm just thinking of the running how it should have ended gag. Because I'm Batman.
Well, we then cut to Adama being, and I forgot to mention at the end of the last scene, Adama was called before the tribunal. So now Adama's been pulled before the tribunal, and the Master at Arms points out, it's like, when did you learn about the Cylons? Why did you withhold this information? He sort of gives the thing as like, it would cause chaos. I withheld it, information, to compartmentalize it, and she sort of asked, like, had we known that the Cylons were humans, were security being run differently? He says yes, but I had to weigh the possibility of security of both. She asked him to speculate on could the bombings have been prevented if people had known, and he said, I will not speculate on what might have happened, and there's a little bit of his background with his dad being a lawyer coming out there, to know not to answer speculative questions. And she asked him, do you believe silent agents planted explosives for the episode Water from a few episodes ago when the water tanks are blown up? And then she also asked him if he believes there are silent agents aboard the Galactica right now, to which he says yes. And then she starts asking him about if he knew about Tyrell and Sharon, Chief Tyrell and Sharon's relationship. And he says yes, even though he questions where she's going with this. And she just says, my questions are not subject to Commander's review. And he says, maybe I'm a soft touch, which gets a chuckle from the tribunal. And she asked about whether you know that they're possibly they've allegations of being Cylons. And Adama says, you know, if the chief he's been with me for 5 years, if he had wanted to blow up the ship, he could have. He definitely knows how to. But then when there's she sort of calls out like, oh, the violations of regulations, you might have two Cylons collaborators to violate the safety and security of the ship. Adama says, you've lost your way, you've lost sight of the purpose of the law, to protect its citizens, not persecute them. Whichever we are, whatever's left of us, we aren't that. And he sort of puts an end to the tribunal, to which the tribunal says, you have no authority to do that. And he says, this is a witch hunt. I will not have it aboard my ship. The Master at Arms sort of gives one of the guards orders to restrain Adama, but Adama gives the guard an order to take the Master at Arms into custody and says, make your choice, son. And the guard chooses to side with Adama.
Yeah. And again, like, given what a raging asshole the Master at Arms has been from the offset, like, there's no tension in this decision. There's no tension in this. Like, if it had been a build, if only now, like, and one could even argue, like, through frustration with people stymieing the investigation, but if it was only now that, like, she started really pushing harder and, like, than she should have, and or ignoring stuff, there could have been some tension in that decision. Like, did Adama exceed his authority? Because, like, on paper, yes, he fucking did. Yes, he absolutely did. You establish an independent tribunal and then decide to end that independent tribunal that you don't have the authority to end. He 100% overstepped his authority, but it is painted such a black and white situation by the way they depict the Master at Arms. Like, that's where this whole episode's been fucked.
Yeah, and this is where I wanted to make the comparison on different points here, because I sort of alluded to this earlier. There's another episode of Star Trek The Next Generation this episode is very similar to, which is called Drumhead. And in that episode, they have a similar thing where there is a JAG officer, a woman JAG officer, comes in on Enterprise to investigate a explosion that happens. And initially, I forget exactly what it is, but like looking for possible Romulan agents. And at first, like, Picard is very much like, hey, I'm willing to help. Like, we always loved your dad. He was a lawyer I always looked up to. Like, he seems very much gung-ho to help with the investigations. Like, if there's any traitors on board the Enterprise, I want to know about it. And it becomes much more of a witch hunt over time. Like, there's a much better build to the witch hunt, and it becomes much more about overt racial prejudice, too, which is slightly different in this episode, because one of the crew members has pretended to be Vulcan to get in Starfleet Academy, but was actually Romulan, and so they start going after him as a possible Romulan agent when it was just him lying just because he wanted to not be
which, like,
against him.
That's a legitimate thing, and they even kind of set up within this with the whole way that they're covering for the Chief and Boomer, because, like, the nature of this investigation is going to uncover other stuff that you're trying to hide, just because if it's being thorough, it's going to find stuff that isn't even what it was intended to find, but are still problems.
Yeah, well, the episode makes the point yes, the guy lied on his application, but they make it a thing of like, oh, he must be a Romulan agent. It becomes a racial thing. Here, and that episode ends with Picard winning the day because he gets on the stand and gives a grand speech about like, this is a witch hunt. He figures it out within the system, which I think is interesting in terms of the Star Trek way, which is like, oh, we can point out the flaws of the system, and the system can ultimately be corrected if we have like the moral virtue, and the witch hunt lady will be proven out. This episode is distinct and different from that, and this is actually something I think Ron Moore is intentional. There's a quote where he like wants to point out, it's like the reason he wanted to do this episode, and I think he doesn't make this connection, but I would be shocked if he wasn't thinking about the episode of the Drumhead here, because he worked on that show and he was there around that time on the show. And this is so hewing so similarly to it, which is the distinction here is Picard works it out within the system and Adama does not. He is, any point that Ronald D. Moore says is, I think, what is it here? It's like, Battlestar Galactica, it's through force and very obvious bending of the rules that seems to be excused because of the way the inquiry was being carried out in the first place. So it's like the point that I think Ronald D. Moore was trying to get to here was Adama, we as the audience agree with Adama because it is in fact a witch hunt. So we as the audience are sort of priming ourselves to be like, yes, Adama's right. He should use his power to toss this aside because it is in the wrong. But in actuality, the problem is he's going above his authority to do that. And so I think it would have been much better. Like, I actually think that's a very interesting point of being like, we as the audience, like, want Adama to be capital R, right, is the captain, but the question ultimately becomes, was he or was he not? And it could even be pointed out that, like, the Master of Arms may have been personally prejudiced, but she kind of was on the right fucking track because Boomer is in fact a Cylon agent and might have, and they might have actually figured that out, or gotten close to it, if they'd been able to keep going. So that's like there's an interesting sort of like subversion of what we expect like the hero protagonist of the show to do here, which I find very interesting, but I don't think it lands as hard because of the way the Master at Arms was characterized and the way that this kind of built. Like, and it wasn't really, and the point of it being made, the point wasn't hit as hard of like, this has become a witch hunt, but also Adama is exceeding his authority. Like, it should have been kind of both things at once, and like, do you agree with Adama because it was a witch hunt, or do you not agree with Adama because he is exceeding his authority when he shouldn't have? And this is actually kind of on the right track because they might have uncovered Boomer, which would have been helpful to them. So, like, that's the kind of question here, and I don't think it lands as well as clear as it could have.
Yeah, and like I can even see an argument being made that like, well, no, this works because it makes the audience more naturally inclined to agree with Adama, and like maybe the show's even going to circle back and point out like, hey, eventually when Boomer gets find out, maybe it'll eventually be circled back to like, that freaking inquiry you stopped, they might have figured this out. They would have found her, yeah. But and I can see a reason why you would like, as a knife twist on your audience, be like, oh, see, you sided with a guy who screwed up. But again, they handle it too heavy-handed. Mm-hmm. I think, like, I understand the inclination as to why you would handle it this way. I don't think it pays off in the way they want it to, and to the extent that it does, I don't think it's worth it for the way they did it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think we're in agreement here because I get it kind of reminds me of the Jakar stuff from Babylon 5, which minor spoilers, skip ahead like 1 minute if you don't want any spoilers for Babylon 5 if you have not watched it with us. But like Jakar in season 1 was very much played as the villain of the series when it was kind of a twist on how we look at people who have been colonized and sort of like seen like, oh, the oppressed sometimes go too far, and the show is kind of like playing with that subversion. And I think this show is trying to do that same sort of idea here of like, well, normally we would side with the Adama / Picard kind of character because they are doing what's right, capital R right. But unlike Picard, who is always proven to be capital R right, because that's the Star Trek future and the system always works in the Star Trek future, unless it's Deep Space Nine, in Battlestar Galactica, that is not always the case. So, like, I think that point is very interesting and very good and correct thing for the show to do. But yeah, I don't think it lands as hard for all the reasons that you and I have been saying. So
yeah, this is a case where if I were to see this episode outline in like a season Bible, I go, awesome, good intent, probably a good way to get there, and it's just the specific nuts and bolts of the execution that let it down.
Yep, I agree. Ooh, speaking of which, I gotta make another note for the spoiler minute. I'm gonna have a lot of spoiler minute here.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. All right. We then cut to Rosalind giving a press briefing. She says the tribunal has come to a close. Let's see. The bomber was a silent agent, gained access through a hatch door. Basically lays out everything that Socinis was found guilty of negligence. And this is the first time we sort of cut to Chief's reaction to hearing this news, because he's sort of hearing it through the press conference.
Yep.
And so,
and like, I do like that it's brought up, like, we have some, so this kind of cycles back into what she said, like, if you call this tribunal, the people are going to want a name, they're going to want someone to blame. Well, they have somebody.
Yep,
it did result in that, even though Adama dissolved the tribunal before it was finished, they still have someone to blame.
Mm-hmm. And it's some poor dumb kid, which Chief then goes to Adama. Adama's working on his ship, because every captain on a sci-fi show just loves to make little ships.
Little model ships.
Yep. Anyways, he's working on his model ship, and the Chief kind of basically says, like, hey, Socinis was trying to cover for me. It's my fault. It's some misplaced loyalty. I do like Adama's line. He says, somewhere in there's truth. Somewhere in this, there's truth. Care to take me to it? I just like that line.
I wrote that down too. I love that line. That's a great line.
Yeah, but yeah, he basically reveals, like, I was sleeping with Valeri and they were just trying to cover for me. And he, it should be me in the brig. And then Adama sort of turns on, like, yes, you should be in the brig. That's a fact. And Chief says, I can't let an innocent kid, and Adama cuts him off. What I can't do is let someone who wears this uniform lie under oath. He lied the first time or he lied the second time. It doesn't matter. He's guilty and he'll pay the price. You'll pay a different price knowing that one of your men is in the brig because you couldn't keep your fly zipped. I need you down there. Keep my flames flying. I need my planes to fly. Dismissed. So yeah, he basically shuts him down, being like, you're gonna have to know that you got this kid in the brig because of this.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting, the note specifically of perjury, because you could argue that there was perjury from the other ground crew, like when they initially gave their testimony, but this kid was the only one who, like, in front of the tribunal.
Well, under oath, because theoretically they just lied while be investigation, which is, I don't know if that's we don't know the legal system here, but, like, technically that's not perjury because they're not under oath when they were giving those.
Yeah. So, like, under oath, he lied. Even the Chief didn't do that because Tyrrell invoked his equivalent of the Fifth Amendment. So even he didn't do that. So it is interesting what's get zeroed in on. Like, yeah, no, he did do that, and it's with one of my favorite things, like both in fiction and in life. Like, look, you were either lying then or lying now. Which is it? Because boy, is it both infuriating or satisfying, depending on whether or not you can actually hold consequences. But, like, to nail somebody with the fact of, like, okay, you definitely lied. When? When was it? Because there's no way you could have always been truthful.
Yep. No, I always love that too. That's always a fun thing. And I also just like this too, where it's like Adama being somewhat practical as well, where he's like, look, I cannot go out on a limb and let this kid, like, try and fight for this kid. Like, he's not saying this in so many words, but I feel like the implication is, like, I can't go out and fight for this kid because, like, he lied, he fucked up, and I can't, like, have it looking to the public that I would, like, let someone off the hook when he there's a clear, obvious, like, thing he did, regardless of whether he's implicated in this helping the Cylon or whatever. That's not even the issue. Like, the public could point to this and be like, this is a problem. So he can't stick himself out on that front. But he also, like practically needs the chief. Like if I lose the chief, I don't have someone who is as good as him to like run the ships. So
yeah.
like, and
like
we don't have
I don't have a
him.
functioning ground crew.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like he's being practical on both sides of this. Like we've seen already that Adama is kind of a man of principle to a degree on a lot of things, but there is a practicality to this decision as well.
Yeah, which that aspect works. Like you can tell he's real pissed off at having been put in a position to even make this call, but I like where he lands in making it. I like this is the aspect of the complexity of the situation that actually works.
Yes, I agree very much so. We then cut to Chief then going to meet with Boomer, and clearly she thinks this is another hookup, but he's like, nope, we're done. I love you, I really do. And she says, I deserve more explanation. He says, like, look, there can be no more secrets, no more lies. You know, I put it all on the line for you. I cover for you. I protect you. I risk my career. And now I'm having my kid take the fall for me. No, we are not worth that. So Sharon is very clearly upset. She goes to leave, but then Chief stops her and says, did you leave the hatch combing open last night? And she says, what are you saying, that I helped the Cylon? And he said, I'm asking a question. I think I deserve an answer. And she says, you have the only answer you're ever going to get. So it kind of leaves the question in the air. A, is he starting to catch on that she is a Cylon? And B, did she actually leave it open for Doral to get in? With the implication probably being, yes, she did.
Yeah. So there's one aspect that I absolutely love about this, and one aspect I was just kind of like, oh, for God's sake. I love his line, we are not worth that. You know, in pointing out that, you know, somebody in trying to cover for us is now in the brig. And he's there because of us, and we are not worth that. I like that a lot because he's not doing this out of spitefulness or bitterness, or like he's upset, but he's not doing this out of anger that is really truly about her. It's about that, like, I've seen the cost of what us keeping to do this is, and I am not okay with it.
If there's any anger, it's anger at himself.
Yeah. So I like that. I mean, I like that as a rationale. I like the wording on it. I do like, again, it's one of those moments where I'm like questioning the intelligence of some of these characters. Like, okay, dude, after you aggressively break up with her, because he does raise his voice throughout this, then you're going to go, hey, by the way, will you kindly answer this accusatory question? No, she's not going to fucking answer that, you dipshit.
Yeah. In no way is she answering that question. Yeah. So, but yeah. But it is interesting. It's sort of one of those, like, is he catching on though?
Yeah. I mean, I wonder a little bit. My inclination is that, no, not really. This strikes me as something more that he will look back on later, as opposed to the thing that leads him to a
feel
conclusion.
Guilty about her, angry about her, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in the moment he's mostly just angry, but like it is kind of this whole, look, we're not worth it. We're hurting other people, and this has to end now. Oh, and by the way.
Are you a traitor to the human race?
Yeah. Like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like, what did you think was going to happen when you asked her that?
Yeah.
And he gets uppity about it. I asked a question like, I deserve an answer to that. Because, like, earlier she says, I deserve an answer from you when he initially doesn't explain why he's ending it. And she's right. She does deserve an answer.
Yes.
Him in those circumstances say he deserves an answer to that? No, you fucking don't.
Yeah, no. Fuck you, man.
Not at that point in the conversation, you don't.
Yep. Agreed. But that does bring us to the end of the episode. So I have got to do... An interesting spoiler minute here.
Have fun, bitch.
Yes. So for the next 60 seconds, I am going to talk real fast about some interesting spoiler stuff coming up, and laugh at Vera behind her back. Ha 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 ha. So if you don't want, I'm not saying that's just me being a dipshit. I'm not saying either way. But yeah, if you don't want any spoilers for yourself, skip ahead 60 seconds like Vera's going to do in real time by taking off her headphones and giving me 60 seconds on the clock.
I really should go back and check out the spoiler minutes from Jumpgate. But anyways, and go.
All right, so first things first, what I always find funny in this episode is not only is Boomer a Cylon, but also the Chief is a Cylon too. So it's just one of those funny things. Obviously a different type of Cylon, but it's still a Cylon. So like both of them are Cylons, and they both would have been caught by this episode. That's very funny to me. Also, thoughts on Head Six. Vera is not... What I find interesting is that Vera is not coming up with the option that it's possible that the Cylons might have different agendas, and that Head Six might be part of a different Cylon group than the rest of the Cylons. So she says like either she's a Cylon or she's a thing in his head, or just some made up part of his head, but she doesn't think that there could be two versions of Cylons, which is actually not the answer either way. It's a fact that she's an angel, so like she's some other third thing. But I'm interested that Vera didn't clock that is also a possibility, that there's a schism in the thoughts of the Cylons, which there is, though Head Six is not evidence of that. But I'm surprised she hadn't thought of that as an option for Head Six. Also, the last thing I just want to quick mention is Boomer trauma. Obviously, the two Boomer gets beat up by the Cylons on Caprica. And that's what it leads to become the other thing that we talk about. Got real close to getting it almost all in.
your lips were moving so fast.
I almost, literally, I always try to get a few extra seconds in there, but then I was just about to say a word right when you put on your headphones, and I'm like, if I say that word, that's a spoiler, so I will not say that word. Anyways.
I was just watching how rapidly you were talking, and just like, ooh, what that mouth do?
Yeah. Shut your face. Anyways, what'd you think of the episode?
Bit of a mess execution-wise. Like, most of the ideas behind it are perfectly solid. I don't think there's any fundamental storytelling fails in terms of the arc of the show and where things are headed overall. I think they just really dropped the ball on specifically the handling of the Master-at-Arms as a character, and that really kind of throws a wrench into a lot of how this plays out and how this lands. Like, this would not take a massive overhaul to fix. It would just take a fair bit of tweaking.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of my thoughts on the episode too. Is like I really like the idea of this, especially in like a comparison to Star Trek and the Drumhead, where it's like trying to point out our natural inclination to like agree with the hero characters and sort of being critique on. I mean, this show is very clearly on some level not only a critique on American institutions and how America runs, but also like Star Trek, which is itself kind of representative of America, but also Ron Lee Moore's time on Star Trek. So like I find that to be a really interesting thing, but yeah, it doesn't land as well as it could for exactly the reasons that you were saying, that it just doesn't. It doesn't build properly to that, specifically because of the characterization of this woman. I do wonder to a degree if, because, you know, that character from Drumhead, she is so remembered in Star Trek fandom as being like the ridiculous witch hunty one. But she doesn't start off that way in the episode, but that's kind of how she's remembered. I almost wonder if a bit of the writing of this character, if the intention was to kind of ape on Drumhead, if it was sort of like writing that character with the characterization of that version of the character in mind, even though it's sort of the Flanderization, I guess would be the best way to put it, of that character. I'm curious if that's ultimately kind of what was the downfall of this episode. They sort of Flanderized her character, basing her on a sort of vibe of another character. Can't know. I wasn't in the writer's room or in the writer's head for it, but I feels like that might have been the problem. So,
yep, possibly.
But yeah, regardless, decent thought episode, good on paper, but not as great in execution. So, all right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anything else, Vera?
Nah.
Then stuff time.
Stuff. You can find my stuff by looking for Council of Geeks. I will be starting to review episodes of the new season of Doctor Who fairly shortly after this comes out.
Woo.
I'll also have a video out, I think, after I think if I have the mental math right, the Saturday after this video comes out, talking about whether or not it is okay to dead name or misgender trans people who are horrible people.
No, it isn't.
But I kind of go off on this because this came up.
Oh yeah, this annoys me. That I fucking hate when that happens.
This came up in my life, and I've realized I haven't talked about this before. So let's get it on the record and explain why that's not okay.
I especially hate it when I see other trans people saying it's okay. But that's a larger discussion for. Anyways, you'll do it in your video, I'm sure.
Yep. So that's what's coming up on the main channel. Patreon is what pays the bills and enables me to do that as my living. There's also the Break Room of Geeks, where I talk about whatever I have watched, played, listened to, or read lately. I am reviewing Daredevil Born Again, which I think will be wrapping up kind of soon after this comes out. I'll be reviewing Andor. When that comes out, I feel like there's something else coming out soon that I'm going to review on there that I can't even think of at the moment. But
Last of Us?
What?
Last of Us?
Yeah, Last of Us. God damn it, that was it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all that stuff in the Break Room of Geeks, plus whatever else I've been up to. And you can also follow Council of Geeks on Blue Sky. And also on the Break Room of Geeks is where I stream on Wednesdays and Fridays. So that is the geeky stuff. There is, of course, also the spicy stuff.
And you can look for that by searching for Vera Wild. Wild, spelled W-Y-L-D-E. And you can find content on YouTube.
I got 4 clicks for all of that, listeners.
Hope it was worth it.
It was definitely worth it. You can find me at Jesse Gender on YouTube, where I do video essay style of stuff. I just had as of this recording, a little less as the time of listening, recent video on the types of stories that resist and push back against fascism, or different types of narratives than the ones that were usually told. So please check out that video because I'm really proud of that one. I have a secondary channel called Jesse Gender After Dark, where I do news, reviews, reactions, all of that stuff, where I will also be reviewing many of the same shows that Vera already said. So check me out there if you want my opinion, my better opinion than Vera's opinion over there. You can find also me on Blue Sky, which is a social media site that I use and pretty much the only one that I use. I am also on Patreon that helps pay my bills. And I am also on Nebula, which is the place that houses my now Webby honoree. I guess it's technically not award nominated. It's like Webby Award honoree, I guess is the way to say it. Movie Identities. You can check it out there, and I would really love it if you did. Besides all of that, anything else, Vera?
Now.
All right, then I hope y'all... Oh, actually, sorry. Before we cut off, I actually do want to get your thoughts on the record on this because it'll be the one time before the show actually comes out. This is potential spoilers for the Doctor Who season coming up, even though neither of us have seen it, but the trailer kind of hinted at this. What do you think about them possibly bringing back the Midnight Entity? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I'm sorry. Run that by me again.
Oh, you didn't hear this? This is the going...
Somebody said it in my live stream today, and I promptly ignored it because I have heard this nonsense before, but if you've got something substantive, let's hear it.
The only thing substantive that I had was in the new trailer that released today or yesterday, I forget which, there's a line that clearly seems to be alluding to that.
I will assume it is an illusion only. I would like to think Russell T. Davies knows better than to try and bring that back.
I really hope to God if they do not fucking explain it.
At present, I have no opinion because I refuse to believe it.
All right, we will see when we see. But anyways, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the record before the show actually started on that. Anyways, anything else, Vera? No, you already said that. So with all that said, I hope y'all live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.